Hello, everybody. Thank you for being on time. We'll be getting started in a minute. It's always so great to see some familiar faces and new faces all on this amazing Zoom screen, which we all enjoy and get tired of and everything else. We're going to get started in just a minute, and then I'll set some parameters and talk a little bit, and then we'll figure out what we're going to do from there. So we'll just wait another few seconds till my laptop says 12 o'clock in Toronto. And of course, I'll be interested to know where you are, because we always have people from very many interesting places joining us online. Okay, well, it's noon. Welcome everybody to this town hall. I'm Michael Kerman with Leading Edge Seminars, and I'm really happy to welcome you here. The idea of doing this was to, get together after the holidays when many of our other options aren't available to us, visiting other people, going to the mall, going out, meeting people at a restaurant or for coffee. In Toronto, that's not happening, and I'm not sure where you are, but I know a lot of the world is locked down. So thank you for joining us. Our town hall is something that happens every month. And the idea, if you haven't been with us before, is that it's really an open forum, a place to get together with colleagues, usually mental health professionals from all over, on a screen together. These are free, they happen every month. And it kind of grew, the idea grew because when we started doing Zoom things last spring at the beginning of the pandemic, one of the wonders was we could all be together again in a very different kind of a way, at least on a screen together, talking, interacting, and doing things we used to do in rooms, actually real rooms, not Zoom rooms, with each other, with clients, with friends, whatever. So that's the purpose of this. And I'll start off by saying a few things about what we're up to, and then I'll let you know what the rest of this hour will be like. So, with Leading Edge, our hopes for 2021 are always to be on the leading edge, bring you people, ideas that will be helpful to you in your lives and in your professional lives as therapists. And we always hope to be responsive to your needs and your hopes for what would make a good experience, a good learning experience for you. How we've been doing this is offering everything live and then on demand. So whenever you register for anything, whether it's a free event like this or our virtual lunch togethers or a webinar, you always get that link afterwards. On our screen, by the way, today is our trusty producer, Emily Porter, who's really the link between you and, in this case, me with our speakers and our webinars. So that chat box is there for you to actually chat with Emily if there's anything she can do, if you have technical problems, if you have questions or things you want to raise through the chat line. Do that. Of course, during our session, you can do old-fashioned waves or new-fashioned Zoom waves to come onto the screen and join the conversation. We have a couple of things coming up. So this is the only kind of commercial. We try not to make this, but I noticed so many of the podcasts I listen to have very stale commercials. So hopefully this will be a little refreshing, because I'm happy to tell you about a couple of things coming up that we're doing. We're going to have Margaret Wehrenberg do a full day webinar on rumination, working with clients where rumination is a problem. I would guess rumination is more and more a problem these days. People don't have the kind of distractions from ruminations that we did in the past in terms of going out, doing things. We have our Netflix and other things to distract us, but rumination has often been a problem working with people. And Margaret Wehrenberg is a wonderful presenter. She's coming up. When is it? January?
Friday.
Next
Friday the 8th. Yeah.
Friday the 8th. And then something very special, another free event for you. I'm really excited about this. Eileen Snell wrote a book called Sitting
Still
like a Frog. I always forget the still part because it's hard for me. Sitting Still Like a Frog is a little book that became a phenomenon around the world. It's really a very playful, hopeful way of helping children and their parents be more mindful. The introduction was by John Kabat-Zinn, who influenced her work, and now it's an international bestseller. Eileen lives and works in Holland, and she'll be joining us for a free virtual lunch on January 9th, and then doing a webinar later in January on Saturdays. These are going to be Saturday events. So we hope to welcome professionals, parents, and everyone else who's interested in learning a very nice way of working with children and mindfulness, but also who can help us. I'm going to say a few words, and then we're going to, I think what we're going to do is we're going to have some ideas and give you the option of being in a breakout room and talking with a couple of other people, because the idea of a town hall is to get together and talk. And it's nice to be able to do that in little breakout rooms in the privacy and meeting someone else or a couple of other people. But first, I want to say a few things that I've found useful about surviving not only the holidays, but this whole time of COVID and being on the screen. So the question about how the holiday season has been for you, we'll just put off for a little breakout room, but I want to say something about the importance of boundaries, routines, and rituals. This is something I've been harping about a little bit on our webinars when we've talked about hard times during COVID. And I was very happy to see an old friend and colleague who's been up to Toronto a bunch of times, Esther Perel, who really has international notoriety now as a relationship expert. Her book, Mating in Captivity, was her first really foray onto the scene of helping couples therapists, and has now such an international reputation. She was interviewed by the New Yorker magazine recently, and this is what she said about boundaries, routines, and rituals, speaking about what we need now. And she said, I think that really what is essential at this moment is that we create boundaries, routines, and rituals. Now, why boundaries? Well, there's a need to be, as best as possible, there needs to be a separation between daytime and evening, week time and weekend, working time and idle time, family time and individual time, moments that are task-oriented, and moments where we just stop a bit. When we're going to eat, when we're going to reset the table, or just push our work stuff away a little bit so that we have room to put our plate down. So boundaries are important. Then she says routines are important, that they create a structure that brings a certain sense of order in a world that feels so chaotic and feels so unsure right now. And it's crucial to have routines. And finally, she says rituals are important, and these is what separates the ordinary and the mundane from something that becomes more elevated, more separated, more sacred. All these three things are essential in our lives, and they're harder to do right now because of the limitations. So a shout out to boundaries, routines, and rituals. Such an important idea. Okay, so I wanted to share that with you, and now I would like to suggest that we'll move forward by giving you the option of either staying on this screen with the people who'd like to stay on the screen, or join a breakout room with a colleague from somewhere or two colleagues from somewhere to have the opportunity to talk together. Now, of course, I'm not going to be a dictator of what you're going to talk about in the topics, but as we said, during these holidays can be wonderful times and very difficult times at the best of times any year, and this year even more so. So the question I'd like to throw out that you might consider to talk about is, how has this holiday season been for you so far, for your clients, the effects of COVID on your lives, the hopes for the vaccine, and what that might do? It's very interesting that Anthony Fauci came out and said, these next few months might be our darkest yet. And he says that in the midst of all our hopes for a vaccine and change, and he's saying not so fast. So I would like to offer you the opportunity to meet with colleagues, and Emily will set up breakout rooms. Emily, you can tell me when we're ready to go. And then you have the option, and in these breakout rooms, the suggestion is that you share the time. we'll say we'll have 10 minutes or 11 minutes of time to give you time to introduce each other and then to share uninterrupted time. In other words, each of you take about 3 minutes to talk about the holiday season and how it's been for you, uninterrupted. So the other two people in the room are basically really good listeners. And then when that's over, you can come back together for a couple of minutes more to process and debrief what that conversation was like. So again, you'll each have 3 minutes. We'll say 12 minutes in total. How has the season been for you, your clients, COVID effects, vaccine hopes, optimism, and fears? So Emily, put people in rooms for 12 minutes, and those of you who don't feel like going to a room, you're welcome to stay on the big screen. Thank you.
All righty. Anyone who'd like to break out, you have those options there. Anyone who wants to stay and chat with us, we'd love for you to stay.
How do they know, Emily? What do they have to do to be in a breakout room?
They've been sent to breakout
They've been
rooms.
sent to breakout rooms.
They just have to agree to go.
Okay. Tell me when everyone's in the rooms, Emily. And I know some people are staying in the big room. Friends like Mary Lou and Janet and Miriam.
I see Miriam and Janet.
Very nice to see you. Okay, are people in the rooms?
Yeah.
Okay. So for those of you who are staying, and I know I have some familiar old friends from the past and some new friends from the future, I hope, all here. So we're just going to open up. And if you'd like to speak, Emily will be our moderator. So you can either go to the chat line and say, I'd like to talk, or just wave and join in the conversation about this holiday season. So who would like to start? Give and be a sharer to begin this conversation. I will start then to give people, I know it takes a little while, so I'll say that, this holidays, always the Christmas season is hard for me. And every year I try to say, why does it have to be so hard? I think, changing routines and rituals and whatever for me is not easy. And Christmas time sometimes can seem like too long a time not doing what I normally do. And also too long a time to realize I'm in Toronto where it's cold and I want to get out and away and into the sunshine. This year, what made Christmas time special was, for the first time in 9 months, my son and a friend of his were in our house sharing a meal, socially distanced about 10 feet apart in 2 different rooms. We were very, very careful. But having someone in the house was quite amazing and made this season very special for me and made me remember how nice it is to sit and have a meal with someone else inside. We had a lot of nice meals outside over the summer in a backyard, and people bring pizza over, keeping our distance and making believe life was normal. And then when it got cold, we couldn't do that anymore. So there's a little sharing for me. I'd like to know then, who would like to share what this season's been like for you so far?
Well, they're so quiet.
Well, I could just say a few things, not so much about, hi, Mike. I have found that Zoom has been such a gift. I have been able to have wonderfully intimate conversations with friends, either 2 or 3 at a time, mostly smaller groups. But in a way, we've certainly done it here, but even personally, I haven't had people in the house, so that's been a no-go for me. But over the holidays, people have just seemed to want to more. And if you meet kind of regularly, it suddenly, in a way, it opens things up in a more intimate way. So that's been my experience, particularly over the holidays.
I might have done something wrong, but I went to the breakout group and there was nobody in my group. So I came back.
Thank you for coming back, Kim.
Either.
I can move you to another room where there are people if you'd like, or you can stay in this one.
I'll just stay.
Okay.
Um,
Hi, Janet.
Hi, Janet.
okay, I had a really, this has been quite a remarkable Christmas, unlike any other, and I don't think I'll ever forget it, because well, various things happened. We had Christmas Eve driveway brunch with half of the members of our family. And it was the rainy Christmas Eve day, but it didn't rain. And it was absolutely brilliant. It was just quite wonderful. The joy of just being able to see each other all at a distance with our masks on was just fabulous. But the most important thing for me was that I came to think of Christmas in a different way, because my father was a Methodist minister, a very good one. And for him, it was very painful to see the commercialization and the tawdriness and the greediness of it all. And I sort of felt that with him because I was his little acolyte. And so I've always felt this sort of blank sort of distress about how we should be celebrating a little family that was poor and was having great hardships, the birth, you know, instead of all the rest of it that has nothing to do with that. Anyway, I'm now an agnostic. I don't believe in anything, but the fact is that I suddenly realized, following our lovely family brunch thing, that Christmas doesn't have to be connected with any one faith or Christianity or anything like that, but that it actually is a celebration of family. And I don't know, I mean, I'm sure many people have come to this conclusion, but it was just like, that's what it is. And from then on, then we had a Zoom meeting with the other half of the family, and it was just joyous. So I think it's an extraordinary Christmas I will never forget. Yeah.
Thank you. Sally, Emily, you're gonna unmute.
Yeah.
Okay.
There we go. Yeah. Hi, I'm Sally from Vancouver. I just wanted I went to the breakout room. No one was there any either. So I came back, but it's good because I wanted to thank you and Emily for doing these. It's I think it's fabulous that you've kept these going through this. So thank you for that. And Christmas. Well, I'm Jewish, but you know, we do everything anyway. So this season, I've adjusted quite well. I feel like I've been very lucky to be able to keep working through this time. So I think it was just, for me, it was more Zoom meetings with friends and families. And, you know, I baked and took cookies to people around where I live who might have been isolated. Just did that, brighten it. I put lights up. I never put lights up, but just to brighten things up. And it's been kind of fine. The most, I guess, I went for a walk with a friend I hadn't seen in a while, a distance walk. And that was kind of like, wow, it's really nice to see someone in person because I've been working remotely for a while. So that was quite incredible, actually. I was like, wow, it really is different in person. So, you know, that was a big event, seeing a friend in person. Later on, I go to an outside patio for lunch. First time in a while. It's like, whoa, gee, I can't remember how to order. Anyway, yeah, thank you. And
Thanks,
happy
Sally.
holidays. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Sally. Thanks for that. I've just been noticing while I've been driving around the number of lights that have been put up in general. And it's quite festive, and it kind of warms your heart to see all of these gorgeous light ceremonies or lights on houses that are normally not there. It seems like people are trying to make the most of it. Yeah, Lisa.
I'm also really grateful for being able to work at home, and I have 3 of my kids from university here, so I feel like I've been really given this gift of being a part of their lives that I would never have had. And even though they're all working online, there's sort of these moments that I would never have experienced. My eldest son plays the piano really well, and every night he practices for about 2-3 hours, and I hear this music and these just little treasures that keep happening. So I'm really grateful for that. And regarding Christmas, I'm also Jewish, but I also work at Last Daybreak, which is adults with developmental disability. And I'm just continually in awe and touched at how they are keeping the spirits of these people alive, and the things that we're able to do on Zoom and without being in close contact. And it's just really beautiful. We had, I don't know if anybody got to see on YouTube, the first ever lip sync for people with disabilities. And that got the whole community just so excited. And it was really beautiful. And they've had Christmas car decoration competitions, and everybody was allowed to drive sort of the home car, and it's just been endless. So that's been really, really beautiful. And I am really grateful for the learning that you guys have provided, because that's another thing that has really kept me going through this, is just being able to keep my mind occupied and feel as though I'm doing something really purposeful by learning more, and that's going to help my work. And yeah.
Lisa, is that the, I don't know if I'm pronouncing this one right, it's Large Canada?
Yeah, I work specifically at Last Daybreak. So Last Canada oversees all of the Last. There's Last Toronto, I believe there's Last Hamilton, they're all over.
Yeah, there was a CBC article about them, and they're just so beautiful.
They are so beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
It's been an absolute treasure.
I will share that in case anyone's looking for a couple videos to watch. They're very, very sweet. So I've just shared that to the chat for anyone who's interested in that.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing.
Mary Lou.
Oh. Sorry, Mary Lou.
Hold on, Mary Lou. You gotta unmute. There we go.
Work? Yeah.
Well, I feel a bit like an interloper because I'm not a therapist. I haven't done any counseling in 20 years when I was on a crisis line. I am a writer, and so I'm used to living alone and working alone, and that has carried me through quite well. But my Christmas story is somewhat unusual, I think. I had my second cataract surgery on December 24th. And the upshot of that is I can see you all very clearly, which is nice. My daughter and her husband came into the city and stayed next door to a hotel. We were masked and distanced the whole time. They took me down to have the surgery done and brought me home. And on Boxing Day, we were able, right at a couple of hours after the surgery, we were able to have a meal I'd ordered in together, which was really nice. Prior to Christmas, I thought, this is going to be very lonely. I'm going to be alone on Christmas Day. And then I thought, what can you do to make it not that way? So I asked my son to arrange a Zoom call with his family and my daughter's family. And we had a lovely visit yesterday. Didn't want to do it on the 25th because I wasn't sure what the state of my health or my eyes would be. Anyway, it's really fascinating to listen to all of you. I've had these invitations, but I haven't been able to come to one before, and I must admit I'm curious, and you all have such lovely stories. Thank you, and thank you for putting it together, Michael and Emily.
Thank you so much for joining us, Mary Lou. We had an anonymous comment that said that there's been a lot of changes. They're thankful for the time to rest, to talk to family, to have food on the table, and to enjoy more quiet time. The breakout, I'm also getting a notice that the 13-minute timer is up for the breakout rooms. So I'm going to let everyone back in to continue the conversation. And they'll be back in the next 15 seconds.
Okay. When they're back, let me know when the 15 seconds are up, and then I'll invite any sharing from that group as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and everyone should be coming on back now. Yep.
Okay, well, welcome back to those of you who are in breakout rooms. We've been having a discussion about what this period is like, realizing that Christmas time is also, for all people, bring back the light. Whether you've had cataract surgeries or not, there's new light in in all of our lives that's coming, and it's one of the most wonderful things of this holiday for all traditions, all around the world, the coming of the light. So welcome back to those of you in breakout rooms. So I would like to invite anyone in a breakout room, if there's anything you would like to share of something that came up, that either you said or you heard, and we'll just open up the conversation for a little bit to everyone else to share about what this holiday season has been for you or what you've learned so far. So I'll just open up again, and if you'd like to speak, you could just note it in the chat box or just wave in the old-fashioned waving way on the screen, and Emily will unmute you and you can join in the conversation.
Oh, hi, Peg. Let's get you unmuted. There we go.
I was struck by how similar our conversation was about the quietness of not having so much to do was actually for most of us pleasurable, although everybody is missing something about contact with others. And we didn't get to the part of talking about ritual and what holiday rituals changed for us. But it occurred to me that although we didn't say it, one of the things we were describing was a new way to experience whatever our family's holiday tradition is. And it wasn't all that bad. It was in fact kind of quiet and a different way to absorb the holiday. And we didn't get to the point, I think probably many of us had different religious points of view, although we didn't discuss that. But one thing I didn't say, that I had the absolute wonderful experience for the first time in years of listening to the entire Festival of Nine Lessons and Carols from King's College in Cambridge, England, without anybody interrupting me. And I sang along and nobody was there to judge whether I hit the notes right. And it was for me a wonderful spiritual experience that I have not had in so many years because there's always too many people around. So there was one really nice thing about the aloneness.
Hi, Diane. Let's get you unmuted. Thanks for sharing, Peg.
Thank you.
One thing that came out in our discussion by all three of us was how fortunate we are that we are in a stage of life that we have enough money and that we don't need to worry about that, but how difficult and how much it hurts our hearts, I think I can say for all three of us, for so many people that are not in that place, and how painful that really does feel. So there was a mixture of a lot of thankfulness, but also sensing a lot of pain that's out there for others as well too.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey. Oh, let's get you unmuted again.
I'm just wondering how many people have the idea that the way they celebrate holiday season, regardless of your religious perspective, the holiday season, if you will, how many of you feel like that's going to be different for you based on what you learned this year?
I do.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh yeah, I see a number of hands waving.
Yep.
If any of those hands wanted to add, they are more than welcome to unmute.
Yeah.
Yeah. Colleen? Oh, let's just get you unmuted. There we go. Oh, not quite.
Well, Janet's unmuted now, and you had your hand up. So why don't we go to Janet Cleghorn? And I think, did you want to say something again, Janet?
I didn't really, but
Oh,
I would.
sorry.
But I don't mind. I put my hand up because I wanted so much to agree with Margaret, with both the theme of yours, which is really how we come to think about these kinds of celebrations. And for me, there's just been this amazing shift in which now I can enjoy what it is, it is for me, maybe not other people. It's not anything to do with any of the faith-based. It's to do with family and how important, how important family is. And from, a therapist who works from an attachment point of view, you'd think that would be something that I would have thought of a long time ago, but no, it hasn't. And it's made a great, great difference to have it across all faiths around family. Yeah, Margaret, so thank you with yours, yes.
Colleen, you're unmuted.
Thank you. I had the pleasure of speaking with Kevin, and he's from Hong Kong. So that was quite an interesting opportunity for me to chat with him and get some interesting information about what's going on over there. Here with me, and Christmas has been very different, and all of the things have been very different. I am a widow, and so I am, basically self-isolating all the time. But I was able to go and spend Christmas Eve and Christmas Day and Boxing Day with my son and my daughter, my beautiful daughter-in-law, and their two boys that I love dramatically. And it was fantastic. And then when I came home, it was really hard. So it's the people piece, right? And it's the family piece. And, I think all of us recognize that, as mentioned earlier, that the state of how we deal with it is the toughest part, but recognizing that you can get through it and move on to the next step is important. And one of the things I've learned over the years is that if you get a stomach ache and you're feeling all upset in your stomach, is that is because you're anxious and the adrenaline has gone to your belly. So you don't have to call the doctor. You can just take some Tums and you should be fine. But just coming back to this whole piece around routine and the holiday season being interrupted. For many of us, routine is important at that time. It just keeps us feeling like it's right. I was able to Zoom with my wonderful daughter and her handsome husband and my beautiful granddaughter, but I couldn't touch, I couldn't hold, I couldn't kiss. So I think that COVID has an impact on us, not just physically and mentally, but work-wise as well. I mean, some of you are dealing with, doing consulting daily with folks who are having difficulties. And then in the meantime, I mean, I'm helping people all the time too, but I still have my own, I don't want to say burden to bear, but I still have my own, emotions to deal with. And for those of us who have to remain very professional all the time, kudos to us.
Lots of nodding and agreements there.
Colleen, if I may respond to that, I periodically find myself welling up with tears as I listen to people who are dealing with grief over someone they lost, or my particular client who is just undone by being separated from grandchildren who are growing up, and how difficult that is for her to adjust when my precious little grandkids are in Switzerland and I haven't seen them for a year, and as I've said in this group before, I had two siblings die this year. And so at the holiday, you think more about them. And one of the sisters would have been the one who hosted the gigantic family gathering. And it was kind of a blessing that COVID interrupted that. So I missed her less in a way. because that tradition was interrupted. But it's this piece about managing ourselves while managing all of the things our clients bring to us that I think is a special demand on why we have to do such good self-care and find some place to share it, like this town hall, which is a great thing to hear, that other people are trying to do their self-care, managing the burdens. I think the burdens of our own emotional life without letting it affect how we are responsive to our clients, which it's what we do, but it's work.
What we do.
Sally, let's get you unmuted.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, there we go.
I think I have a question for people and a comment, which is the hardest part for me has been, well, there's been a few hard parts, but one of them has been dealing with people who aren't following the measures and being, in my opinion, quite self-centered about it. And in the family and friends, I can, we can talk about it sometimes well, sometimes not so well. But with clients who I hear over and over, they're doing this and they're doing that. And I really have had a hard time not being judgmental or not being like a mother, or I'm not a mother, but I have felt like a mother. You're doing what? That kind of response over this time. And I've bit my tongue for the most part, but it's that question of, when do you actually inquire about it, ask about it, and when do you keep your mouth shut? As a therapist, when it's kind of a safety concern, I see it as a safety concern. So I've struggled with that personally, and I'm curious about other people.
That's a really great perspective. Fern, I see your hands up there. Do you want to unmute?
Actually, I belong to a group, a peer supervision group, and that came up in our group at our last meeting. And we decided as a group that when clients bring up the fact that they are breaking the rules, going to a gathering, whatever it may be, I guess as our discussion, we decided that we would say something. We would just remind people, and I think we all unanimously felt that it was our professional responsibility just to say, are you aware of the fact, or something along those lines. We didn't just we decided we would just address it when it came up. There's nothing more you can do. We can't say you're doing, it's a really hard decision, but I think we all felt better about ourselves if we just said something. And so that's what we kind of decided to do. We were 6 people in the group, and we meet once a month, and we felt we had to. And I certainly feel I'm a nurse as well as a therapist. And so I approach it, from the medical perspective. I had a client tell me she was in the middle of a separation, and her spouse, who she separated from, takes the kids to a family gathering every weekend. And I felt I had to say something. Like, I don't think it changed anything, but at least I had to do that. So I'd like to hear how other people are handling that as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Heather as well. Heather, let's get you unmuted. There you go.
Yeah, very interesting and important topic. So glad you brought that up. In general, with topics like that, not that one in particular, where I feel very, very different, I often just start with, oh, tell me more about that. How did you come to that point? Or and I'm very affirming of that. And sometimes just with that prompts a question from them. Oh, well, what do you think about it? Oh, or what do you think of my idea? And then I might have a chance to say something. If they don't, and again, for professional reasons, I too feel that it's important to say something. But I like to give an invitation just by way of tell me more about that to see what might come from the client. So that's what I wanted to add.
Lisa. Lisa, did you want to unmute? There we go.
I was kind of in a situation that wasn't to do with work, but I heard from somebody I knew that her boss had been tested positive for COVID and was not isolating and was actually going to be going into the office and seeing clients without telling them. And I was frantic, and my friend wasn't going to be doing anything about it. And it just made me think of ethics to do with work, to do with everything. And I decided that I could not live with myself if I didn't do anything, because I didn't know how many lives that might compromise. And I ended up calling the police because I didn't know what else to do. And I was frantic, like I really was frantic, but they were incredible. And they followed up on it. They put a stop to him going to work. Apparently he was furious that somebody had sort of called on him and called the police, but they were really supportive. And yes, I mean, even now thinking about it,
Mm-hmm. We got a couple thumbs up for that one.
Lisa, how courageous of you, and I think taking action on something that's potentially life-threatening. Not everybody would have had the courage to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Thank you.
And Ellen, I see you're.
Yeah, I agree with Lisa about that. And I think back to the other question. I'm actually retired, been retired during the COVID for other health reasons, but in previous situations where the clients were telling me about unsafe behavior, I would do that. I could get them to talk about it, but also remind them that, say drinking and driving, that's illegal, that I had family, I drive and my son drives, and just also get them to think about the repercussions. I think especially that's important, because we tend to have this view, everyone else could get it, but I'm invincible. I've heard that from family members and friends, and it's not true. Obviously, we're all vulnerable to some degree. But I think I've always felt as a therapist, it's important to get people to, think about the consequences of their actions, whether it's personal or has wider ramifications. And in the case with, I think maybe it was Fern, someone mentioned a client whose husband was taking kids to. Now, you can't do that much about when it's third hand like that, but at least you can maybe encourage the client to talk to the husband or family member and get them to think about it. So anyway, I'm really enjoying this discussion. I think it's good to be able to talk about all these things.
I wonder if I could ask them.
Thank you. Miriam, let's get you unmuted. There we go.
Yeah, I've had the same thing mostly with younger kids, not kids, but 20, 21, 22. And I had one client who's a nurse actually, and she's 22. She was having lots of problems with friends, and all her friends were getting together, and she was invited, and she went. And she was going to another one. And I said, is anyone concerned about COVID? And she looked at me like I was nuts. No. I said, well, you want, think about it. I'm constantly amazed, not just clients, but everyone, how much it's not a concern. I just see around me people coming and visiting their friends and visiting family. And I'm in a small town, but I'm in Stratford, where we did not have cases here until recently. It was so I wasn't too concerned, but with clients, I don't press it because I don't see the reason. I will ask, is anyone concerned? Are you concerned? What does concern you about that? But I'm not quite sure where I would go with that, what I'm trying to get from it, what my goal would be to press it. If it's not going to do any good, which it wouldn't, and if I would lose them, which, I certainly don't want that. But I do try to say, are you concerned about anything, or is anyone concerned, or something like that. I just have to say one more thing. I have one client whose son tested positive, and her husband, who's not the son's father, was furious because the son told the health unit that he lived with them. And he said, why did he tell me that? Why did he tell them that I lived with them? Now I can't go to work. So I said, well, good that he told them. That's good.
Yeah.
And Miriam, I just want to respond quickly to the one thing about what good would it do? The only thing that I might do somewhat differently than you're describing is I say to my clients, tell me how you're making that decision. What's the basis for your decision making? Because then what comes up is codependency, fear of conflict, fear of loss of attachment, loss of love, loss of friendship. And so we get into their therapeutic issues. Whether or not they change their mind isn't the point as much as tell me how you're making these decisions, because these are where I think really reflective of relationships. So that's why I bring it up.
Yeah, no, I get that. And there are times where it's mostly the client will express a lot of concern, like someone else said about the father taking them somewhere that they wouldn't have done themselves. They're much more, they're minimizing as much as they can the risks that they put their kids into. But the people, the clients that I have and the people I see around, it's more a question of not seeing the risk, not considering that there's a risk. And again, especially where I live, where there weren't any cases for so long. And people were being careful mostly, but it's different. I know it's different because my family is in Toronto, and I know that there was a big difference between here and there, but not so much anymore. And we haven't caught up yet, I think, in our minds.
Thank you. Ellen added that they have a son who lives in Nova Scotia who had planned to visit, but after talking with him, we decided that although we would miss each other, it would be safer if we waited until things were safer. This son, aged 28, said he would never be able to forgive himself if he was asymptomatic and spread COVID to those he loved. And I see Regina has a comment and Colleen has her hand up. So Colleen, you're unmuted, and then we'll get to Regina.
Thank you. I just wanted to kind of sneak in here a little bit around COVID. You've probably heard a lot of stories about people who have COVID. One of my very good friends and one of the gals that used to work for me, she came over for tea in the garage, and because I do that, I have heaters and we do tea in the garage. So anyway, she came over and we had a very nice visit, and then she went somewhere else, and then she called me and said that she was going to go in for a COVID test. And I said, okay. And so as soon as she told me she was going in for a COVID test, I booked a COVID test. Even though I had no symptoms, it's just that we had been friends for so long. She'd been at my home, all of this kind of stuff. Okay, so we'll fast forward through. Kathleen tested positive, and I tested negative. And so that was and she was very relieved because the nurse told her that she didn't have a strain that she would need to be, put in the hospital. So I texted her every day, and not very often did I get a response. And then about 11 days later, I got a text from her saying she'd just called the ambulance and she was going to the hospital. Because when COVID hits, I don't think everybody understands what COVID does to your body. It goes into all your muscles and all your joints, and it is horrifically painful. And so you can't get up and make yourself a cup of tea. You can't go walking around. So there was no one there to feed her. And so she went to the hospital. She's doing better now. She actually texted me the other day. I text her every single day, and I finally got a text back. But sometimes I think that people don't understand the full ramifications of COVID. They just don't get it. She's on oxygen now, but not a ventilator. She's on an IV, so she's getting some nourishment. But sometimes I think you got to tell the tough story. You got to say to them, this is what happens. This is what happens to your body. This is what happens to, you know, your life. And I'm certain people, I have another friend who survived it as well. And and that was in April or May. And she's just now feeling really vigorous enough to go for long walks. So people don't get it. It's not like the flu. And sometimes I think we just need to be tougher, and we need to say, I have a friend, you know, and you can use my friend if you want. But she did not get to see her grandchildren. She didn't get to see anybody this time. So I just wanted to share that. I hope that I didn't upset anyone, but I just think that's the story I'm telling people who are telling me stuff of what they're doing through CODIV.
Yeah. You didn't disturb me. I'm just wondering, just waving, how many of you know somebody well enough to say you know somebody who's been sick with COVID?
Oh yeah.
Wow.
So many of us have, yeah. So yeah, I think you're right. We have to share those.
Regina.
Well, my faith community is mixed culturally, Europeans, African people from the different islands. And it was not mandatory to wear a mask. And we have been having service since the middle of May, meeting every Sunday, now Wednesday night and Friday night. We had a conference in October, and tomorrow starts a conference, and no one has gotten COVID, and many people do not wear a mask, which is very interesting. What happened, I guess, to kind of stun people is that the pastors and the person who leads worship, they went out of town to a conference, and because they were so accustomed to not wearing masks in our community, they assumed they could do the same. And the hosts were both COVID positive and forgot to tell them. They came back, our pastors came back. Fortunately, they're young, they're 50. And the person who leads music is 33, also COVID positive. But the other was 88, but she's in good shape and came out of it, the 28-year-old daughter, and then they had guests for Thanksgiving. And it wasn't until she could not taste her cooking that the female pastor, because it's a husband and wife team, realized that she may have COVID. And so I think she also missed in our state that our governor said beginning November the 16th, that if we were going to continue to congregate, it should be mandatory. It says mask recommended, and most people choose not to. And I have been fortunate not to get COVID, and I've been tested. I had a procedure, but now my employer, we are emergency use. So it was offered to us last week. However, the other piece to look at with that is people who have my complex diagnoses were not in the test group. And even my physician who sent me a letter via my electronic medical record said, we don't know how your body, not just mine, but everybody with my diagnosis, how you all are going to respond. And so you don't want to put something in your body when your body is already, you all already fight for health. And, you know, and I'm doing extraordinarily well. I've gone 9 months out in the world attending conferences by doing something simple. I wear a mask. Yeah. When I'm somewhere where there's no airflow and I have to stand in the post office for 15 minutes, I double mask. So for me, not doing the vaccine and double masking is a better health option for me. Yeah. And I'm hoping the people in church, the people who are saying it's against my civil liberties to wear a mask, our pastors who believe in God and everybody, they were able to get COVID. I think that was the belief system, because we do believe in God. We're not going to get COVID. Well, they didn't get it in our community, but they went out into the world and they brought it back with them. So let's extrapolate. If they were able to do that, what about you?
Thank you so much for sharing that, Regina. We have a few more minutes if there's any thoughts, conversations, or questions that anyone wants to ask. Sally.
I just want to say thank everybody for your responses to that question. My other thought moving forward into the new year is it's not going to get better quickly. And my worry is that, and this is the other thing I'm thinking about how to talk to this with not just clients, but people who are all excited and starting to, let down their guards, is that just because the vaccines are rolling out doesn't mean that we can, if COVID is still around and until we get the vaccine, we have to be careful. So that's the next I don't want to be a wet blanket, which I can be. It's my rep in the family now, but it's a reality. So that's my next kind of challenge of, okay, it's coming. It's good. We have hope. It's great. And be careful until you get it. Anyway, this has been great. Thank you.
Thank you.
We have a few minutes to go. Let's just open it up. Yeah, go ahead.
Veronica, let's get you unmuted. There we go.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that when you wear a mask or when you take care of yourself, you're not only taking care of you, you're taking care of your community. And sometimes if people say, I don't have to wear a mask, it's interfering with my liberty. The question is, what about the community? What about the other party? We have an obligation to take care of them as well. So that's all I wanted to say.
Thanks.
And Veronica, in the United States, it's the thing that makes me the angriest that it got produced as a political challenge, and it has nothing to do with liberty at all. And it makes me so angry when I hear that. And I have, Sally, set myself as the naysayer in my family. And one of the things that makes me sad is how much I have lost contact with my family, siblings primarily, who get together without masks because they think they live in a place where there's not so much, they'll be fine. And I'm the one and I have deliberately set myself out because I don't believe that that's safe. But I think we all are dealing with clients who are making those tough decisions to set themselves apart from the people that they care about, friends and family members, in order to be safe on their behalf. And it's painful in order to make that decision. It sounds like you are aware of that.
Veronica.
Well, I live in Canada, so Canada isn't exempt from that. People aren't exempt here from thinking they're above expectations or obligations like that. And I also want to mention in ending that there were two pandemics.
Yes.
The COVID pandemic and the racial pandemic.
Yes,
so
indeed.
Which hasn't been a part of our conversation, but which is very real. And I think we all need to, how we speak up for COVID, speak up for racial justice, speak up against systemic or against, against white supremacy. So I just wanted to put that on the table as well.
Yes. Thank you.
Absolutely. Sure. Absolutely.
Emily, I think Perrette wanted to make a comment. I really appreciated you raising that, Veronica. Thank you.
Yes, hi. Yeah, my wrist is broken right now. And I'm in the basement and such a mess because we are renovating the house and everything. Oh my God, what a mess. And yeah, I wanted to add something to Lisa. And Lisa Nackan, right? Yeah. Yeah. I think that you had to do what you had to do. I remember a client, I mean, he was suicidal. I was thinking about that. I had a client once, he was suicidal. A neighbor called me saying that he couldn't do a thing. So I called the police. And when the client reached back to me, he was so angry at me, so angry. And I just told him, I don't want to talk to you on the phone, please come home. And I said, well, I had to do that. And believe me, if you ever attempt at your life again, I will do that again. I will do that again. COVID-19 is not something like you said, is it Colleen? Yeah. It's not a flu. I mean, I come from New Brunswick, Canada, and the part of the province where we're at, there's not many. I think we had like four cases.
Yes.
Yeah, since the beginning. But people are wearing masks and things like that. They really are serious about this, and yeah, and I had a client phoning me to push back his meeting. I'm French, so I'm trying to find my word sometimes. And because he has been with other friends who might have been in contact with people with COVID, so he was waiting for the results and things like that. So it is a really serious thing here, and it's a community thing. So, and I also sing in a choir from my hometown, and at the mass, everybody has 2 feet distances between each other, and there was not many people inside, like maybe 70 people or something like that. And yeah, it's quite different. I mean, people cannot hug. There's lots of sadness, lots of anxiety too. So we really, really have to take care of ourselves as therapists. It's a priority. And we have to be blunt about this. I mean, it's a security issue. It's like when we started in cars, you know, we had to have those belts. People would complain and say, hey, I mean, nobody is going to force me to wear that belt. Well, every now does that, right? So no one will go back and say, hey, I'm not wearing my belt. And it's a security issue. Yeah. So I really liked today I came in late, but it's really nice to hear all of you about this, especially people from US, right? So COVID is so present there, and I feel for you. So I just send you lots of hugs and kisses. Take care.
Thank you. And I see Chi Kung has your hand up. Do you want to unmute?
Yes.
Hi.
What's up? Yes. Hi, Emily.
You had your hand up.
No. No. So anyway, I just summarize what we have talked with Connie.
Yes.
Am I correct?
Yes.
Yes. In this period, COVID period, I think we are isolated. We need to build some good relationship with our neighborhood, because in case if we are in risk, need helps, we have somebody to help. And in this period, we have to keep communication with each other, to keep our brains operational, to keep our minds operational, make it alive, and don't make it inert. And let's fight the virus together. Thank you.
Well, maybe that's a good place to end. I want to thank everybody on this Zoom neighborhood, which we have together. It's been a very rich conversation, and really thank to every one of you, whether you spoke or not, for being here, and wishing you all the best in this coming year, hoping everyone hopes it's a better one. And I hope we see you again on the screen. We do this town hall monthly. We have other things. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll open this up for everyone to say your goodbyes if you'd like. And Emily, thank you for being the hostess for the mostess.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.